She is introduced like a candle held against the wind, a figure made of softness and steel, a presence that unsettles because it feels unguarded, immediate, alive. Michelle Pfeiffer is that paradox, fragile and light, unyielding and shadow moving through decades as if she were both breeze and granite. On screens that once tried to shape her into something simple, she arrived as contradiction incarnate, a quiet that could slice, a gaze that could burn. Audiences learned to stay hushed around her, because the stillness that surrounds her is not emptiness but voltage, an atmosphere in which a single heartbeat seems to ring across a theater. The faces she wore, a poised silhouette in a tale of crime, a feline force wrapped in midnight, were less masks than mirrors. They reflected, again and again, the same truth, a life built not on shortcuts or benevolence but on stamina, restraint, and the refusal to become smaller than the ache within. The artistry dazzles. The endurance humbles. Behind the glitter sits a ledger of storms, doors shut with polite smiles, a love that softened and slipped away. Late-night rooms where the only companionship was a lamp and a script, and the knowledge that even triumphs cast long, cold shadows. Yet she kept walking. There is always a hush where she goes, the kind that belongs to cathedrals and winter mornings. Step closer, and you can feel a pulse steady, defiant rising from a past that tried to tame her and failed. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Before the world sized her up in pixels and posters, there was a house that hummed with work, where dignity lived in the scrape of metal and the soft clink of tools. Richard Pfeiffer was a builder of ordinary days, a man who traded sweat for shelter, heat for hope. In the truck cab that smelled of dust and summer, the steering wheel thrummed beneath his hands like a metronome, keeping time with responsibilities no one else wanted to count. He understood machines that wheezed and rattled, units that blew warm air when cold was promised, systems that needed patience more than force. He came home carrying the weather on his clothes, the scent of sun-baked roofs and copper time lingering in his sleeves. At the kitchen table, he passed the salt like it were a blessing and listened more than he spoke. Children learned, from the rhythm of his silence, that love can be quiet and still have the weight of a mountain. He did not sermonize. He simply arrived every day the way dawn arrives, without fanfare, without fail. There is a particular grandeur in that. It shapes a child's idea of permanence. It teaches that steadiness is a kind of genius. When he was gone, years later, it was the absence of that rhythm that most startled the heart, the missing creak of a door, the unstruck chord of a whistle in the garage. The world shifted half an inch, and nothing sat right again. Comment or write Rip Richard Pfeiffer to honor them. Donna. Jang moved through rooms like a draft that knew where everything belonged. Before daylight could make up its mind, she was already awake, hands in lunch pails, thoughtfulness folded into napkins, a ledger penciled in the margins of memory where every dollar had to learn new tricks. She was the melody to Richard's drum, the calm that smoothed frayed edges, the small rituals that make a home feel held rather than merely inhabited. In the kitchen, the radio sidled songs, and she orchestrated the day with an economy that looked like grace, laundry drifting like white sails, a grocery list that performed acrobatics between needs and limits. She rarely spoke of fatigue. She wore it the way others wear perfume, softly, almost invisible. In her gaze, each child discovered that attention can be as nourishing as bread. Later, when the house held its breath and the rooms waited for a voice that would not answer, you could feel how much of the universe had been contained in that gentle gravity. Without her, objects seemed to float untethered. It is strange to learn that the quiet person in the corner was in fact the ground beneath your feet. Comment or write Rip Donna to honor them, long before cameras caught the particular tilt of her head, before a costume stitched from leather and midnight recalibrated what desire and danger could look like. The girl from Santa Ana practiced invisibility like a second language. Michelle Pfeiffer stocked groceries, while counting the distance between a life measured in barcodes and the one that kept thrumming just beyond reach. The fluorescent hum overhead was a kind of weather, the conveyor belt a slow river that carried other people's dinners and habits past her. She was courteous, careful, and strangely alone present to everyone and seen by no one. Sometimes, after a shift, shoes in hand, she walked home barefoot to save the leather and dared the pavement to remember her. That small rebellion made the night feel like a witness. The house she returned to was tidy with limitations, a refrigerator that sang louder than laughter, a fan that prayed away the heat, a neatness that disguised strain. Yet the ache inside did not ask for pity. It asked for room. And that ache grew a discipline. She learned to wait, to watch, to store unspent electricity for the moment it could be used. When she finally ventured toward the city that devours and canonizes, she brought almost nothing, some dollars, an old car that coughed, a rented room where winter slipped under the door. She waited tables, answered phones, smiled for cameras that wanted the surface but not the storm. Compliments arrived like cages. You're beautiful. Doors closed with courtesy. She went home, sat on a thin mattress, and reminded herself that hunger is not only for food. It is for proof. It is for belonging. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. The years remember small gambles that become thresholds. There was a pageant, entered not out of worship for crowns, but out of a desperate logic. Any open door is worth testing. The sash didn't change the world, but it altered the angle of a few spotlights and opened a hallway where commercial shoots and brief appearances waited. She did her job and watched the rooms, learning which smiles were honest and which were armor. Then came the disappointment with a sequined grin, a musical that promised momentum and delivered a stumble. Headline writers did what they always do. They mistook cruelty for wit. She absorbed each sentence the way a tree takes lightning. There is damage, yes, but also a deeper ring forming where strength hardens around the wound. She studied. She practiced. She walked back into rooms that had already decided what she could not be. Somewhere in those relentless days, she received an invitation that felt less like opportunity and more like an examination. The names attached to it were heavy, the temperature of the room colder than the calendar suggested. Michelle stood under lights that flattened everyone to paper and spoke lines like glass transparent. Sharp, breakable luster held at the edge of shatter. Doubt in one corner stirred, startled, as the air changed and the words landed with a metallic chime. That moment did not fix everything, but it recalibrated the instruments people use when they measure you. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle. Pfeiffer to honor them. Albertino had been a rumor in her journey long before his presence became a facta, name that carries a certain gravity in the mouth, a measure against which intensity is weighed. When their paths converged, the conversation around her tightened into labels. Too soon, too soft, not yet. The room, a blend of expectation and skepticism, watched for proof and secretly braced for confirmation of its doubts. He, too, reportedly skeptical, found himself witnessing something else. A performer who did not explain herself but revealed, with terrifying calm, a temperature few could sustain. The partnership that followed did not feel like being anointed. It felt like stepping onto thin ice with the knowledge that the lake is deep and the winter is long, and then discovering that you can indeed cross it because you were built for this weather. When the film arrived, the world that had treated her as ornament suddenly realized it had misread the blueprint. The chill elegance she carried on screen wasn't vacancy, it was precision. The fire wasn't spectacle, it was control. There are certain unions, actor to role, gaze to camera, presence to moment, that reroute careers. This was one. For him, another chapter in a storied canon. For her, a declaration, a tolling bell that announced she would not be reduced. Comment or write Rip Al Pacino to honor them. What followed was less a sprint than an orbit. Projects circled close, then closer, until she was living in a calendar of call times and flights. The suitcase, a second home, and the makeup chair, a brief chapel, where a face could be blessed into someone else's life. The work dazzled, yes, but underneath it lay the arithmetic of endurance. Days bridged by catnaps, lungs still tasting of stage smoke, eyes calibrated to different menacing dawns. In one year she shimmered with wit, in the next she unspooled a soul so visibly that accolades had no choice but to learn her name properly. The applause sounded like rain on a roof, warm, reassuring, and, if you're not careful, loud enough to drown out whatever your heart was trying to say. She studied the ledger and saw what wasn't visible to headlines, the toll exacted by excellence, the way each role asks to borrow something of you and then forgets to return it. Money multiplied. Offers thickened. The myth of effortless ascendancy grew around her like ivy, pretty and constricting. Late drives alone became a kind of medicine. The city glowed like an indifferent galaxy, and the dashboard cast small constellations across her hands. In the rear view, she sometimes saw the supermarket aisles again, the barefoot girl defying gravel. In the windshield, a future that was both radiant and ravenous. She had achieved what so many dreamers beg from the night. Now came the more difficult portion, keeping her soul intact while carrying it through rooms that were designed to take it from her. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them dealt once. The thing that kept her steady were a ring and shared a table where the bills were counted and the laughter was home-cooked. The love that began with small kindnesses, the last clean cup, the scribbled note on the fridge. The trade of encouragement between two working artists depended not on opulence but on collective stubbornness. In the early days with Peter Horton, they believed that a partnership could anchor them against the undertow of ambition. For a stretch of years it did. Scripts were rehearsed on the couch, hope shared like blankets in winter. But careers are weather systems. They changed the coastline. Her rise redrew their map. Schedules clashed, silences lengthened. The nightly ritual of arriving to the same room grew strained by distance that had nothing to do with miles. What ended was not a war. It was a gradual cooling. Paperwork was signed without spectacle, belongings were not fought over, and what remained afterward was the noise of an empty plate set down in a quiet house. The lesson, written in a hand steadier than grief. Sometimes loving someone and living beside them are different crafts, and excellence in one does not guarantee talent in the other. Comment or write Rape Peter Horton to honor them. Work kept moving as it always does, inviting her into worlds where temptation and consequence dance at a whisper's distance. On a production steeped in elegance and peril, she found herself matched with John Malkovich, another traveler through the labyrinth of performance, another soul whose gifts can feel like mirrors held too close. Fiction offered them lines about subterfuge and desire. Reality, being less poetic and more human, merely offered proximity and hunger for recognition from someone who understood the strange loneliness of living in public. It was not a scandal shouted from rooftops, only a soft private trespass, the sort that leaves no tidy language behind, only a bruise where a boundary should have been. The aftermath taught them both what all grown people eventually learn, that even quiet misdirections pull threads you cannot easily reweave. She went home with knowledge that weighted in the chest like a stone. He returned to his life carrying whatever name one gives to choices that were sincerely felt and sincerely regretted. Comment or write Rip John Malkovich to honor them, and still she worked, because the craft had become both sanctuary and test. In smoky rooms where songs are born of longing and late hours, she made a voice into a blade and let it cut along the melody's edge. In a gown that caught the spotlight like a net, she traversed a piano top with the calm of a swimmer crossing a moonlit pool. Crews stilled. Some eyes welled, not in admiration of surface, but in recognition of risk. The sight of someone refusing to be beautiful in the easy way, choosing instead to be true in the hard one. Later, in a tale about a city draped in capes and corruption, she stitched vulnerability to ferocity so tightly that audiences could not see the seam. Toys of power and images of danger bent around her. Headlines, unused to a woman outshining the center of a franchise built on male myth, learned new grammar. The bank account swelled. The calendar loosened by choice. She began to skip offers that would have looked like trophies and selected the ones that looked like peace. The trade she made was simple, less applause in exchange for more air. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. They met when noise had already learned their names. Two travelers who had survived separate weather systems and were suddenly offered a quiet table in a crowded world. David E. Kelley arrived not as an escape from her past, but as an answer to a question she had stopped asking. What does steadiness feel like when it is offered without agenda? He was a maker of stories who loved the craft more than the curtain call, a listener who measured rooms not by fame but by kindness. Their first conversations did not float on compliments. They were anchored in the practical rhythms of real life: what time you make coffee, where you keep the pens, how you survive a long week while remembering to laugh. On the second date, she revealed the most important line of her script then. She was in the process of adopting a baby girl. He did not blink. He welcomed the sentence like a threshold he had been hoping to cross. Something in that uncomplicated acceptance untied knots that achievement could never reach. They married within the year with the tenderness of people who understood that vows are not performances but practices. Fame stood outside the ceremony like weather you check but do not invite indoors. Inside, there was the simple sound of two people saying yes and meaning it. Comment or write Rip David E. Kelley to honor them. Claudia Rose arrived not as a cameo but as a center of gravity, a small heartbeat whose presence relocated the furniture of their lives. The house changed its hours to match her sleeping, then her laughter. Schedules were rewritten around feeding, then play, then school. In a world organized by call sheets and release dates, she introduced a different metric of success: a cereal bowl washed before bedtime, a bandage applied without fuss. A story read slowly because the voice doing the reading was learning patience as it went. Michelle discovered that attention is an art separate from acting, that showing up in the same kitchen each morning requires a discipline different from any role. The camera can applaud you for an illusion. A child asks for the whole truth again and again and again until love becomes muscle memory. She watched her daughter's curiosity unfurl like a flag in clean wind and learned that legacy may be less about what the world remembers and more about what a child keeps. Now grown, Claudia carries her mother's gentleness like a compass, moving through days with a steadiness that feels inherited not by blood but by example. Comment or write Rip Claudia Rose to honor them. A year later, the rooms brightened again. John Henry, a name that sounded like rhythm, joined the chorus, and the house learned new songs, the rustle of pages from a tired father's study, the clatter of blocks becoming castles, the polite chaos of morning shoes at the door. With him, Michelle recognized a familiar architecture but careful thinking, the quiet spark, yet everything felt new because parenthood remakes old knowledge in softer tones. She looked at her son and saw proof that tenderness can be strong without needing armor. The world will teach toughness, she reasoned. Home must teach grace. And so the days thickened with ordinary splendor, detours to playgrounds after errands that could wait, tears dried on shirts headed to the laundry, hands held while crossing thresholds large and small. Scripts arrived and were read with a different filter now. Not whether a roll would roar, but whether it would cost too much of what could never be replenished bedtime. Conversation, the small miracle of a family eating together with the television off. Oof. Comment or write Rip John Henry to honor them. Work did not vanish. It softened its edges. While David's pages stacked high on a desk, illuminated by the steady lamp of obsession, Michelle learned the choreography of choosing. She selected projects like a gardener choosing what to plant in limited soil, with attention to season and to what the garden home could bear. She stopped bargaining with exhaustion and began prioritizing peace. On set, she carried inside her the hush of those mornings when cereal bowls gleamed in sink light and tiny shoes waited for laces. That hush altered her performances, making them less about spectacle and more about presence. She could stand still and move an audience, not because stillness is dramatic, but because it is rare. At home, the typewriter's clock from David's study sounded like rain on the roof, comforting in its constancy, occasionally annoying in its persistence, and proof that the man she loved remained himself even when deadlines demanded too much. Some evenings they sat side by side in quiet rooms, both working, both near, both learning that intimacy sometimes means two different silences braided together. Comment or write Rip David E. Kelley to honor them. The happy seasons had their frost. Success asked them to perform the circus trick of being everywhere at once, present for premieres, faithful to pages, awake for coughs at 3 a.m, attentive to school plays where the acoustics were cruel, but the smiles were priceless. There were evenings when fatigue turned the kitchen into an airport lounge and grace into a rationed commodity. They argued gently and, when wisdom caught up, apologized without armor. The marriage gathered rings of experience the way trees mark winters, some narrow, some wide, each a record of survival. Michelle found herself using a different dictionary now. Words like achievement and acclaim moved to the edges. Verbs like stay and listen and forgive became the syntax of her days. In interviews, she called him home, not because of poetry, but because the word fit like well-worn denim. What they built was unremarkable in the way oceans are unremarkable to those who live on their shores, seem daily, rarely named colossal. Comment or write Rip David E. Kelley to honor them. Grief, which keeps its own calendar, arrived to audit the ledger of her life. The world imagines that losing a parent is a single event, a day circled in black on a wall planner. She learned it as a climate. After Richard was gone, the smallest sounds carried new meanings. The garage, once musical with tools, stilled into a museum of touch, a wrench where a hand used to be, a chair with the shape of someone's patience still pressed into its cushion. She drove at night through familiar streets and felt him in the hum of the engine, the lane lines stretching forward like lessons about persistence. Work continued, work always continues, but a space inside her stayed unlit, a room with a lamp she didn't know how to switch on. She wore the ache the way he had worn his work clothes, quietly, daily, with a dignity that refused pity. Comment or write Rip Richard Pfeiffer to honor them. When Donna Jang followed, the house's center shifted. So much of a family's grace lives in the unnoticed gestures, the way napkins are folded, the cadence of reassurance when soup is served, the magic spell of "you're okay" said in a voice that can make it true. Without that timbre, time slowed. Michelle found herself performing small rituals as if they were prayers, watering a plant exactly as Donna once did, arranging a drawer so that remembering could feel like presence. She discovered that grief is not a storm that passes, but an instrument you learn to play. Some days the melody is unbearable. Some days it is the only music that makes sense. She spoke softer. She moved with a reverence usually reserved for museums because memory had turned ordinary objects into artifacts. In gardens at dusk, barefoot on damp earth, she asked questions of the air and accepted the answers delivered by leaves. Comment or write Rip Donna Jang to honor them. The craft kept offering sanctuaries where she could pour what could not be said. A director once gave her a gift she did not know she needed: permission to be many things at once. Jonathan Demme did not try to chisel her into a type. He handed her a space where humor and heart could live in the same face. On that set, she felt the rare alignment of trust and play. He spoke to her like a colleague with a shared mission rather than a statue to be positioned. Something in his gentleness recalibrated how she approached the business of pretending. She began to understand comedy as a form of honesty, that timing can be compassion wearing clever shoes. Years went by as they do, and the postcard conversations continued, small notes sent across time that said, "I see you, keep going." When news arrived in 2017 that he was gone, she did not perform her mourning for cameras. She went outside and let sunset do what sunsets do, take the day away while making the taking beautiful. Gratitude pressed against sorrow until they occupied the same shape. Comment or write ripped Jonathan Demme to honor them. Loss kept its appointments with her heart. In the spring of another year, a headline carried a name that had shared laughter with hers under the sometime cruelty of set lights. Ray Letta had been a force on screen edges honed, danger calibrated, but between takes he was proof that gentleness and grit can coexist in one face. During their work together, they played a marriage bent but not broken, and in the intervals between action and cut, he made the crews grin, reducing the room's temperature of tension with an easy aside. There is a particular holiness in people who carry warmth into cold spaces. When she learned he had died, she has reached a stage in life where light itself seems to obey her pace. Morning arrives not as an alarm, but as a conversation. The Pacific wind slides through half-open windows, carrying salt, memory, and the faintest echo of applause that the horizon itself seems to remember. The world outside still calls her legendary, but inside those walls, she is simply someone who waters plants, straightens frames, listens to the hum of a coffee machine, and thanks the day for its calm. Michelle Pfeiffer remains proof that endurance can be quiet and still be revolutionary. Comment 67 or write rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Her properties are not monuments to wealth. They are reflections of balance. In Pacific Palisades, her estate breathes under the shade of eucalyptus and oak, its walls lined with books, its floors soft with sunlight. The architecture is not meant to impress, it exhales serenity. There's a kitchen that smells of citrus and memory, a library where time behaves differently, a garden where silence feels curated. Up north, in Woodside, another home waits, older, gentler, carved into nature rather than imposed upon it. She walks those grounds as if retracing the steps of gratitude itself. Each place is both a shelter and a mirror, a reminder that she began in small rooms and ended in spaces built for air and reflection. Comment 67 or write rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. The cars she owns are chosen with the same discipline that governs her role's elegance, restrained by purpose. A Mercedes for the long coastal drives where ocean and asphalt debate eternity. A Tesla for the conscience of the future, its silence echoing her own preference for understatement. And somewhere beneath canvas covers in the garage, the vintage Cadillac waits like a photograph that remembers movement, red as nostalgia, gleaming with the kind of Hollywood that existed before algorithms learned to imitate grace. Each vehicle, in its own way, tells a story. Progress without noise, beauty without excess, motion without haste. Comment 67 or write rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them, the numbers that define her success, those lines and ledgers and articles that mention fortune miss the point entirely. Yes, the figures are vast, the investments wise, the productions under her name steady and careful. But wealth, to her, has always been a side effect of endurance, not its aim. She built not an empire, but an equilibrium. Decades of artistry distilled into calm. The fortune remains, of course, anchored in good soil and sensible choices, but what it represents is far more intimate, proof that her faith in herself was never misplaced. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle, Pfeiffer to honor them. Her influence on screen has matured into something elemental. Younger actors study her not for tricks, but for truths. They watch how she can inhabit a frame without conquering it, how she bends light by presence alone, how a single blink can summarize loss better than paragraphs of dialogue. She has become the patron saint of understatement, the kind of performer who reminds the world that silence, handled well, is cinematic thunder. In her later roles, she has continued this discipline. In one, she wore sorrow like silk. In another, she ruled empires of fantasy, but played them as if they were rooms of fragile humanity. Her performances now are less about transformation than translation, of emotion into resonance, of experience into stillness. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Age, for her, is not something to defy but to translate. She wears time like a well-written line, precise, unashamed, necessary. The mirror, once a sparring partner, has become an ally. Its reflection offers not critique but continuity. She does not chase youth. She converses with it. Each wrinkle, each softening contour is annotated with meaning. Her grace is not preservation, it is evolution. She follows routines that nourish rather than punish. A plant-based diet that feels like gratitude to the earth, movement that feels like prayer, stillness that feels like mastery. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Philanthropy, for Michelle, is less about headlines and more about heartbeat. She gives the way rivers do steadily, quietly, shaping landscapes without demanding applause. Cancer research, environmental reform, animal welfare, children's health, these are not causes for her, but continuations of empathy, the same instinct that once made her characters human. Her donations are significant, her involvement sincere, but she rarely speaks of them. Generosity, she believes, loses its purity when performed. Those who know her say that giving is simply part of how she breathes. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle, Pfeiffer to honor them. Motherhood remains the lens through which she measures everything. Her children are no longer the small hands that tugged her sleeves in grocery aisles. They are adults walking into their own sunlight, carrying fragments of her patience and discipline. She watches them with the calm satisfaction of someone who no longer needs proof of worth. Their laughter fills her house less frequently now, but when it does, it feels like an encore. They have inherited her dual legacy: public excellence, private sincerity. Comment or write Rip Claudia Rose and Rip John Henry to honor them. The afternoons of her present life unfold like film reels slowed to half speed. She reads by windows where the light pools like honey. She gardens barefoot, trusting the earth to remind her of humility. Sometimes she revisits old performances, not to critique, but to greet the younger self who dared to step into unknown rooms. She no longer views fame as destination or punishment. It was merely a landscape she had to cross to find herself. Peace, she has learned, is not a finale. It is a craft, and like acting, it demands practice. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. There are evenings when she sits beside David, the two of them lit only by the soft flicker of a fireplace and the sound of something timeless playing on vinyl. They don't speak much. 30 years of shared life has edited their need for words. A glass of wine, a shared glance, a song they both remember but can't name. Around them, the house hums with everything they built. Love unbroken by fame, faith unshaken by years, quiet unspoiled by regret. They have become experts in contentment, masters of the art of staying. Comment or write Rip David E. Kelly to honor them. The moonlight in her garden no longer feels like a reminder of time passing. It feels like applause from the universe, a standing ovation offered in silver. Michelle Pfeiffer walks slowly among her flowers, the air thick with jasmine and the sound of distant ocean hums. Her hair, brushed by evening wind, carries the soft shimmer of years lived honestly. Every petal around her seems to echo what the world has already said in countless ways, that endurance, when paired with grace, becomes art. The garden itself feels aware of her presence, as if every leaf were remembering the stories she once told the screen. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. There are artifacts of her journey that she keeps not for display but for meditation. A worn script, its pages yellowed and creased from nights of rehearsal. A Polaroid from a forgotten set where the lighting crew laughed louder than the actors. A faded ticket stub from her first premiere, where she sat trembling in the dark, unsure whether she belonged. These are not trophies. They are coordinates, proof that a young woman once dared to dream beyond the edge of her small horizon and found the world waiting. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. In the quiet of her home, memories play like old films with no need for dialogue. She sees her father's work boots by the door, her mother's gentle hands folding a shirt. She can almost hear the slow whistle from the garage, the soft hum from the kitchen. Their absence no longer wounds, it teaches. The echo of their presence is everywhere, stitched into her patience, her humor, her tenderness. Every time she offers kindness to a stranger or encouragement to a young artist, it is Richard and Donna speaking through her. Comment or write Rip Richard Pfeiffer and Rip Donna Jang to honor them. She sometimes writes letters she never sends. To her younger self, to the people she has lost, to the ones who taught her and the ones who tried to break her. In those letters, she is not cinematic. She is raw, honest, almost fragile. You survived, she writes to her 20-year-old self, not because you were fearless, but because you learned to move even when afraid. To her father, she writes, your silence raised me louder than words. To her mother, you built a world out of small mercies, and I live in it still. And to time itself, you took much, but you gave me wisdom in return. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Hollywood has changed around her. The skyline of fame is different now, faster, noisier, more disposable. The glitter that once blinded her now flickers on screens too small to contain wonder. Yet through it all, she has remained a constant in a medium that worships novelty. Directors who once grew up watching her films now approach her sets with reverence. They whisper about her focus, her restraint, her uncanny ability to find humanity in spectacle. Younger actresses speak her name as a compass, an example of survival with dignity. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Awards and accolades still arrive occasionally, gilded acknowledgments of an already immortal career. They no longer thrill her the way they once did. Instead, she sees in them a reflection of persistence, not praise. Each statue feels like a thank you from time itself. And yet, even surrounded by evidence of her greatness, she never pretends to be larger than the life she's lived. She often says that her proudest work isn't on screen, but in the moments no camera has ever caught. A shared laugh with her husband, a letter from her children, a sunrise seen without anyone watching. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Sometimes she revisits the old soundtracks, the ones that scored her early films. She closes her eyes as violins rise and memories return in waves. The sets, the crew, the exhaustion, the magic. The first time she saw her name alone on a poster and realized that anonymity, that delicate shield she once wore, was gone forever. She doesn't regret it, but she remembers its cost. Fame, she knows now, isn't a crown. It's a current-pulling, relentless, occasionally merciful. You either learn to float or you drown in admiration. She learned to float. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle, Pfeiffer to honor them. The years have given her a strange freedom. She no longer needs to prove that she belongs. The world has already decided that she does. This allows her to play, to explore, to take roles that whisper instead of scream. In smaller films, she finds herself again, the woman who listens more than she speaks, who lets emotion pass through her like light through glass. Directors describe her as fearless in Stillness. Co-stars call her the calm in the storm. She has reached the place every artist secretly seeks, the power to choose serenity over spectacle. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Her life with David continues like an old melody, steady, tender, occasionally surprising in its simplicity. They have grown into the kind of couple who communicate through glances, who understand that affection often hides in the smallest gestures, a hand resting on a shoulder, a mug left warm beside a computer, a note scribbled on a grocery list that says, "Simply love you." Theirs is not a romance of grand declarations, but of daily devotion. After 3 decades, they have mastered the art of ordinary miracles. Comment or write Rip David E. Kelly to honor them. And yet, she has not withdrawn from the world. She still attends events when they matter, not for exposure, but for connection. When she steps onto a red carpet now, she carries herself like someone who has outlived the need for validation. Cameras flash, and she smiles, not for approval, but in gratitude that she still has something to offer. Each appearance feels like a conversation with time, a reminder that beauty, when born of authenticity, does not age, it deepens. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. There are certain evenings when memory and possibility sit together at her table as if they've always been friends. The lamp is low, the window is a rectangle of night, and the world beyond the hedges is gentle with quiet. Michelle Pfeiffer recognizes this hour, the one that turns ambition into reflection and reflection into gratitude. She thinks of the girl who counted coins for gas and the woman who negotiated silence with cities that never sleep. She thinks of scripts that wounded and healed, of rooms she entered uninvited and left unforgettable. What remains when she sorts through the years is not a stack of headlines, but a constellation of moments, a look held half a second longer than written, a breath taken in the exact center of a line, a child's laugh arriving just as the credit music fades. Her legacy is not a monument carved into stone. It is an atmosphere, a temperature by which other artists set their thermostats. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. She understands now what endurance really asks, not only that you keep going, but that you keep going kindly. The industry can turn even bright spirits into amplifiers of fear. She refused that role. She learned to be generous with takes, to listen not as prelude to responding, but as an act of faith in a scene partner's courage. Crew members remember her by the way she greets them on early mornings and the patience she extends when the light misbehaves. In telling, they smile because professionalism is common, but consideration is rare, and she has both. Young actors come with questions about fame and survival. She offers them something sturdier than advice and example. To one she says, carry your hunger, not your panic. To another, don't mistake volume for force. They leave the conversation standing taller, not because she flatters them, but because she believes they can be better than the rooms will sometimes allow. Comment 67 or write Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. The present for her is equal parts ritual and improv. Mornings unfold with devotion to the quiet miracles, stretching that wakes the spine like a hymn, walks that instruct the lungs in gratitude, meals that respect the body without making worship a burden. The choices are deliberate and without fuss. Food that grew in honest soil, movement that lengthens rather than punishes, rest treated as a sacred collaborator. Whether at the Palisades home where sunlight behaves like a patient friend, or in the woodside refuge where the air offers its counsel through cedar and fog, she tends to the life that once seemed impossible. The hours she protects are the currency she values now. On their best days, they are spent ankle-deep in garden dirt or lost inside a book whose sentences feel like steady rain. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Sometimes the house is noisy again. Claudia Rose and John Henry return, bringing with them the weather of separate lives, a gust of stories, a pressure drop of laughter, a sky of the unexpected. They cook, they tease, they borrow memories, and return them slightly improved. She watches them wash dishes in the kitchen she once paced while memorizing lines, and a strange, exquisite calm settles over her. They are kind. That is the miracle. Not their achievements, though there are many, but their kindness. She thinks of the day she told David on a second date about a daughter she had chosen before he chose her, and how his acceptance unlocked a room inside her where confidence could finally sit down. The family they built did not shout itself into existence. It arrived quietly and stayed. Comment or write Rip Claudia Rose and Rip John Henry to honor them. When night falls, David E. Kelley retreats into the room where stories are coaxed to life. The keyboard clicks with the particular insistence of a man who understands that characters, like children, thrive under attention. She passes the doorway and smiles. After all these years, there is still something magnetic about the sight of him at work. The concentration, the half laugh at a line that lands just right, the posture of craft. He emerges with pages and a hunger for her opinion. She reads with the kind of focus that once held the gaze of a whole theater. Their conversation is generous and exacting. They do not flatter each other. They make each other better. Later, without ceremony, he refills her tea and touches her shoulder with the familiarity of someone who has chosen the same person for a very long time. Comment or write Rip David E. Kelley to honor them. Grief keeps tutoring her gently now. When she thinks of her father, she remembers the particular way he parked the truck, a careful angle, a tidy alignment as if even endings should be orderly. She hears the echo of his whistle and the soft thud of boots by the door. Absence has its own music, and she has learned to sing along. With her mother, the memory is tactile. The neat corners of folded shirts, a hand steady on a thermos, the quiet authority of kindness. She knows now that they were teaching her a language she would need all her life, a vocabulary of steadiness and grace. Her generosity, her patience on set, her insistence on dignity, these are their fingerprints traveling forward through her gestures. Comment or write Rip Richard Pfeiffer and Rip Donna Jang to honor them. She thinks, too, of friends born of the work. Jonathan Demme's tenderness still lights up a corner of her mind. He had the gift of making a set feel like a community and a comedy feel like a confession, where no one would be punished for telling the truth. Sometimes she hears a line reading from those days and realizes he taught her how to listen for laughter as if it were heartbeat evidence that the scene is alive. Ray Latta visits in flashes, a crooked grin between takes, a conspiratorial aside that deflated tension, the fierce tenderness of a man who played tough because he understood softness too well. Their names are now chapters that close with gratitude. She does not speak often of their absence, but she carries their lessons like spare keys, useful, comforting, proof that doors once opened can be opened again. Comment or write Rip Jonathan Demme and comment 67, or write Rip Ray Leda to honor them. When she returns to set, the camera still finds her as if it were relieved. The lens likes truth, and she offers it without ceremony. A director might ask for more, and she will answer with less a stillness that clarifies the scene, a half smile that complicates it. She is past the era of proving. What she pursues now is precision so refined it disappears, leaving only the feeling the story requires. On genre stages where worlds are extravagant and physics negotiable, she locates the human chord. In intimate dramas where silence does the speaking, she tunes that chord until it hums. Critics use words like masterclass. She calls it working. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. There's a question she has asked again and again by interviewers who still hope for a secret. What would you tell the person you were at the beginning? She smiles because the answer changes depending on the season. Today she might say, be braver with your rest. Tomorrow, don't give your stillness away. Next week she would add, the room is not the judge, the work is. She would tell that younger woman to resist both despair and adoration because neither knows the whole of her. She would say, accept the compliments and then forget them. Accept the rejections and forget them faster. And she would whisper the sentence that saved her during the lean years. The right silence is not empty. It is gathering strength. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. Sometimes she imagines an audience that includes everyone. Whoever touched her life, the cashier who covered her shift, the casting assistant who said try again, the journalist who wrote with care, the teacher who taught her how to hold a breath without letting it shake. She imagined standing before them with no costume, no score, no choreography, and simply saying thank you. Not a performance, an offering. For all the ceremonies she has attended, that is the one she longs for most. A room where gratitude is the only script and leaving quietly is the encore. Comment 67 or write Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. What then is the measure of a life like hers? Not the number of covers or the zeros on a statement, not even the awards that glint under museum lights. The measure is the chorus of people who felt less alone because she told the truth in beautiful ways. It is the daughter who found courage in a mother's steadiness, the son who learned that intelligence can be gentle, the partner who discovered that devotion is a daily craft. It is the colleague who realized that kindness and excellence are not enemies, the audience member who left a theater quieter than they entered, carrying a new respect for their own private storms. The measure is in the futures she quietly improved. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them. One day distant, she hopes she will step away from cameras completely. Not with a farewell tour, not with trumpets, just with the same quiet that carried her through the noisiest years. She will rise early to watch the light become itself. She will write letters to no one in particular and answer them if she chooses. She will continue to give as water gives, finding low places and filling them. And she will keep the promises made at a backyard wedding, at a kitchen counter with homework spread, on a couch where a script and a baby monitor lay side by side. If her story instructs at all, it insists that beauty is not the opposite of strength and that silence, tended well, can be the loudest form of courage. Comment 67 or write Rip Michelle Pfeiffer to honor them.